Awareness is immediate and clear. Question.
I am now seeing what is meant by awareness, but my mind will not let go of this question. How do we know that awareness is definitely not just a product of the brain-body? I recently asked another teacher this question and he said that he can't actually say, but that it isn't actually relevant. But I think that it is, because if the brain creates and contains awareness, as opposed to awareness creating and containing the brain and everything else, then the whole picture is different. If the brain creates, contains awareness, and then projects it outwards as some scientists seem to believe, then that means that awareness is just another thing and is separate from other objects. Whereas if awareness creates or contains the brain, then that would mean that awareness is everything and the brain is just another thing within it. Hence, if the brain dies, then so does awareness, and thus awareness depends on something else for its existence. This means that it is the creator and is eternal. I know that I'm not really wording this very well, but I know that you'll understand where I'm coming from. It seems to be a last sticking point that my mind can't let go of.
A good way to start with this is to see the undeniable fact that you are present and aware. There is obviously a sense of existence and awareness. It is really the only undoubtable thing that you know. Everything else is only an appearance within this. Everything appears as an object to this awareness. Ultimately, you see that everything that you can know, including the world, the body, the mind, and all else, if there is anything else, is only a movement in this. Nothing ever exists in our direct experience, except as an object in awareness. To speak of a separately existing world or body or mind is not possible if we go on direct evidence. This is simply a fact that you notice. You can verify it directly by investigating and looking at this. The question, is awareness a product of the body-mind, or is it truly independent, is troublesome to the mind, no doubt. But the fact is that this question itself is created in thought and is an appearance in awareness. This is undeniable. Thought is always changing and sometimes disappears altogether. And yet your existence, your presence, which is also that awareness, does not disappear just because thoughts change or even disappear completely. The mind cannot reason its way into the direct seeing or knowing that this awareness is present in spite of whatever appears and disappears. It is just a brute fact. It is interesting to note that when the mind is not pinned into this conceptual dilemma and does not imagine or create a problem, there is a natural sense of peace and clarity that is unmistakable. The question as it is presented is unresolvable at its own level because the mind or thinking process is trying to make a determination about something that is completely beyond its realm. The mind, which is only an appearance in the awareness, is trying to make a judgment about the nature of the awareness. This is utterly futile. It is a wrong question, really, that ties the mind up in knots. You can tackle this from another angle. That is to see that doubts, questions, and problems are generated in thought. They are ultimately based on the idea of being a separate I or person. Even if this question is answered, other questions will continue to plague us as long as there is some kind of assumption of individuality there. Questions only arise to him who imagines himself to be separate. A good way to resolve all questions is to see if there is any such entity as an I. Without that, who has a question or problem? This is not satisfying to the mind, and seems to be a complete disregard for its cherished, important questions. It is. I have worked with several people who have migrated to this question as the seeming core dilemma. Just as a heads up, it never really gets answered by the mind, because the answer is not ever in the mind. It is better to see that the answer is not in the mind and save yourself a lot of mental turmoil. Just see that you are this awareness. Directly see that it never comes and goes. Notice how all objects appear in this, and it does not change. This is a direct observation through looking and knowing without conceptualizing. See that the mind is trying to get an answer. That is all that is happening. It is creating a problem and suffering at some level. Yet the awareness itself looks on, and it is not disturbed in the least even as the mind ties itself up in knots. When this is seen, there is an immense freedom and clarity. The confusion drops away, leaving a peace and serenity that is unmistakable. In that clarity, What is pointed out is extremely clear and known in a deep way that is not getting run through conceptualizing. So if this awareness is known, and you have a sense of this, relax into it and feel the natural clarity and joy inherent in that. All the wisdom and answers you need will spontaneously arise for you without having to work it out in thinking.
Thanks so much for replying to my mail. I know what you are saying is the truth, and I am just going to let the silly mind do its thing with this question, and hopefully it will disappear. After years of being told it's so simple and immediate, I think it is finally being recognized. I'm seeing exactly the same as before, but realizing what the seeing is, if that makes sense. I feel like it is finally being seen, but my mind is saying, but what's the big deal about this? So now I'm just relaxing and seeing what else moves in.
The old habits come up based on the mental grooves of the past. The whole approach for years was based on trying to get an answer in the mind. At some point, it starts to dawn that the mind is tying itself up in knots, and this is in fact generating the confusion. Once you start to see this, you simply do not go there. It is needless suffering, really. Still, there is a dawning realization, as you are so clearly expressing, of something immediate and clear that is undeniable. It is not theoretical or what if. It is an immediate sense of presence and clarity. There is a natural gravitating toward that. A lot of the pointers begin to strike home, and there is deeper knowing, without trying to run it through the old conceptual mechanism. The bottom line is that you are present and aware. The background of presence and clarity is really a space-like awareness. It simply never comes and goes, as is discovered by direct looking and checking it out. All thoughts and perceptions arise in this. Interestingly, this can never be doubted or questioned, because the existence of the question presupposes presence awareness to even cognize the question. At some point, this recognition begins to become more apparent and clear, often through getting this pointed out. Then there is a relaxing into that. It is very simple, really. It helps when the realization strikes home that this is not a mental understanding, but a direct seeing in immediate experience, without running things through a conceptual analysis about it. Anyway, I sense you are onto this.